the king of Europe, Harry Stebbings. Harry sent a nice note on the timeline yesterday.
He's been super supportive.
It's interesting. I was DMing him with him a little bit, and I'm sure he's going to be in the waiting room any second, but on how he's in the waiting room.
Yeah, he was saying he listens to the show, and I think we finally made a show
There
that's long
is.
enough for his marathon walks because the guy's putting up 40,000 steps a day. How many steps have you racked up today?
I do 50,000 now. So every
50,000.
night I run for like 2.5 hours, and I listen to you on the walk.
It's fantastic.
We got it. So just let us know when we need to go from 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah,
because we want to
we'll
pace
bump
with
it
your
up.
walking, your steps.
Honestly, I walk with my mother on the weekends. If we could do weekend editions also, it would save me having to talk for 6 hours with her.
I love
sure
it's
those
been
conversations are
it's awesome
important.
to see your relationship with your mom. It sometimes makes me feel like a bad son because I don't walk for that many hours with my mother. But I was just saying, you had a nice message yesterday on the timeline.
Yeah, thank you for the support.
It's interesting, the shows that we really respect, all of them are highly ephemeral, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're shows that aren't really oriented around the news. They're oriented around individuals, people, companies, etc. And ours is the exact opposite, right? Like it would be kind of crazy to go back and
The
listen
back catalog
to
is kinda crazy
to,
here.
sometimes we'll talk about a story that maybe is more evergreen, but you've built up this sort of crazy catalog of some of the most amazing investors in venture ever. I wanted to have you on for a few reasons, but really to give you an opportunity to talk about Project Europe. We joked on the show that until you guys came out with this new program, the Project Europe that most VCs thought about was planning their sort of trips to Saint-Tropez over the summer. But you guys are taking it back.
Do you know what? We're taking it back. We also have Portofino.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm fundamentally, the world has decided that Europe has, lost innovation. We've lost entrepreneurs. And I meet great founders every day. And you know what they're told? You got to move to the Valley. And I'm like, you don't have to move to the Valley. You can build a massive company here. And I think bluntly, we need to change the vibes. Vibes is everything. Elon, you like him or you don't. The guy knows how to master vibes. And for us now, we've told our young entrepreneurs that you should leave, that you should build a company elsewhere. There's a guy, Gary Stevenson, who is blowing up in the UK, who tells young people that bluntly, it's the system's fault, it's not your fault, and there's nothing you can do about it. There is. Guys, 10 years ago, I had no money. I was a kid in a bedroom. Today, we manage over $750 million. The show and the media companies, multi-millions, because of the internet. I'm not doing that as a me. It's the internet and the empowering nature of, I DM'd Mark Benioff 53 times before he came on the show. We remind, by the way, we remind, sometimes we'll message a friend about coming on the show and they don't get back right away. And I'm like, I got to channel Harry right now.
For sure.
I just got to hit him up again. And it's important to share those. A lot of people would just, have the temptation to make it look easy and say, oh yeah, I just messaged Mark Benioff and he just popped on. It was easy. But it's important to remind people that persistence is what creates greatness.
Logan Bartlett's the same way. I think he DM'd, he said he emailed SBF 15 times to try and get him on the show. And I was like, I don't know how you could do that. It feels so awkward to me, but you've clearly broken it down and it's paid off massively.
Dude, but you know what? You've got to get innovative. I use Suno.ai to write songs about people and then I send them to them. So I'm like, write me a song asking John in a male folk guitarist tone about the future of M&A. And then I'll send it to them. I promise you're the only one who's going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important in fundraising, sales, and even growing a podcast. It's all the same thing.
Oh my God, totally the same thing. But on Project Europe, it was the doom loop just pervasive. And I have so many friends in the US who are just Europe, dude, why are you still there? And it's just not true.
But the timing. But the timing seems incredible. You've been, banging the European drum for a while now, but it does seem like even in the last month almost, there's been this sort of shift, and that's sort of potentially coming from this, the U.S. is getting into trade wars with our neighbors, some of our closest allies. There's just sort of nationalism happening around Western Europe kind of waking up. People are there, there's more. The people are talking about what is going to be the Anduril of Europe. I'm sure you're looking at some of these companies, but the timing seemed great.
I think we're going through this intense period of deglobalization, and what happens in intense periods of deglobalization is intense patriotism. And I think we're at the start of that now, where absolutely we're starting to see Europe once again get a little bit more patriotic. It's funny you said there about like the Anduril of Europe. It's Helsing, and my favorite thing is when you see defense funds, and you're like, no, I don't quite know if defense is quite the category. It's more like Anduril and Helsing, like.
Yeah. Very cool. I'm curious, you run your fund, you run the media business. Do you LP into other European funds? Are you trying to kind of create a sort of like, I imagine one of the benefits, a Keiretsu. No, but one of the things here in America is great. If I've got a buddy who's raising a pre-seed round, I talk to them. I'm like, okay, I know 30 people that could lead this pre-seed round. Like, don't worry if any one person says no, like you're going to get a yes, just talk to a bunch of people. But I imagine when there's probably not 30 London pre-seed funds that you kind of at the moment, but maybe there should be, or maybe there are.
I mean, I don't actually LP really into other funds just because with the network from the show, if I LP'd into one, I'd have to LP into all of them. And so I find it easier to say just like, I'm sorry, I can't do LP checks. Otherwise, you end up being Mark Andreessen, where like, I don't know a fund that Mark Andreessen is not in. I've been pitched so many funds where Mark is an investor. And so, listen, he has more money than me and can afford to do that. I couldn't do 100 funds.
Can you tell us a little bit about the patriotism in Europe? Are there layers to this where, a Spanish company will only want to raise from Spanish investors and say, hey, get this British guy out of here? Or is Europe kind of solidified in the same way that the United States is kind of a block, even though obviously there's a difference between Florida and New York and California?
I would say that Europe has solidified completely. There's definitely not this kind of isolationist element of like, oh, Spanish versus Italian versus whatever. And Jesus, even the English and the French are getting on these days. That goes to show just how much of a united front it is. And I think especially in the wake of, the divide that's growing between the US and Europe, that becomes ever stronger, that unified country element of Europe. And so I don't see that at all. And Europe really stands as a block. And I think you see that in how people have responded to Project Europe. And we've had, thousands of applications. I started with 25 founders that I was like, hey, I'll go get 25 founders that are amazing. And they will, write a check into this vehicle to back the next generation. We literally went to 150 in 3 days.
Wow.
Right? We've had another 300 to 400 requests to be in. There's a legal cap of 250, so we can't actually do it.
Wow.
Capped.
It was amazing.
Talk about when you were an early investor in Lovable. They've seen ridiculous growth. It's one of those charts that's not really a line. It's more like a wall.
Yeah.
Talk about that round, how that came together. Are you getting these companies like weeks earlier than American, investors that would want a shot at it? Is it months? Talk about your edge in Europe on the ground.
Yeah, 100%. Lovable is a great example of a global company that's being built from Europe and Sweden in particular. Their numbers are insane. They're growing, 2.3 to 2.5 million ARR per week. Their retention's better than ChatGPT's at over 85%. I mean, It is a monster. And their retention is really important. It is not sugar high AI revenues. And so phenomenally impressive. Listen, Anton is quite obviously brilliant. I think we over exaggerate how difficult our role is as venture investors. Our role is to invest in the 1%. And generally, the 1% I find is quite obvious. And so when I met him, it was pretty apparent that he was bluntly creating an entirely new category. I've learned one thing in investing, that when you're able to make your customer a superhero, it generally works very well. Nike's a good example. Everyone's an athlete. That message is empowering. Shopify, everyone's an entrepreneur. And Lovable allows anyone to build a website. My mother, who has a bakery, uses Lovable to make her bakery website. That is
what happens? I love your commentary on just the website market in general, the sort of, you've got the framers, the web flows, all these different platforms. It's felt over the last few
Wix
years.
And
It's
Squarespace
felt
and
over the last few
Shopify.
years, if you just waited for, Webflow to kind of become 4 years old, then you could create the framers and then you could do the Lovables.
It's been like the unending gold mine, honestly.
Yeah, and it
So
seems like
you've got a couple of different segments here that I don't think people are really talking about enough,
Mm-hmm.
which is like you've got the number ones, which is PE-owned, larger, older players.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they are in a lot of trouble. They've lost innovation. They've lost product centricity. They're in a real world of pain. I'm really looking at a lot of the PE board assets, your Anaplans, your Coopers of the world, thinking, wow, you were bought at the height of the market. You don't have the founder as the CEO. You've lost product centricity. This is going to be a really tough slog to get back to that acquisition price. And they know that. And then the second that no one's talking about either is this really worrying segment. This is almost what I'm most worried for. 50 million to 200 million ARR SaaS businesses that are growing in the teens and they're not profitable yet, or they're barely profitable. They are not acquisition targets for PE. Those are not good enough numbers. They're not good enough to IPO. What happens in that case? And there's a lot of these companies. That is a really dangerous chasm to fall down that I don't think many people are talking about.
What about just the broader market? We're seeing a pretty significant sell-off in the U.S. Is Europe seeing something similar? I haven't been tracking it very closely.
And
when
do
you say
even,
sell-off, what do you mean?
Yeah, I think he's talking public equities, but I mean, in your position, do you as an a venture investor, probably don't care. But I even talk about maybe just like pricing in the early stage market, which is probably what you're more clued into.
I mean, there's so many things here. I think one thing that no one's talking about, I'm so shocked about it, is like bluntly how LPs are responding to a lot of the endowment policy changes enacted by a Trump administration. I mean, like this is a very, very difficult position for a lot of endowment funds to be in. They're forced to rethink a lot of their private allocations, and that will significantly impact managers' abilities to raise funds this year.
Can you step back and explain exactly what the change is?
Well, so you're seeing essentially the Trump administration reduce a lot of the budgets that they're able to have to their privates. And so you're seeing that reflected in how they're engaging with new managers. When I speak to a lot of endowments today, they're simply not adding new managers and they're even trimming their existing. And so I think that's bluntly going to really impact the amount of new managers that we see this year. In terms of pricing, honestly, it's higher than it's ever been for the clearly great assets. And there's a lot of people who come and say, oh, it's so unfair, it's so unfair. I understand that for a lot of the market, you're not coming out of Stripe or Facebook or you name it. But if you are, you have more money than ever before, and the prices are honestly higher than ever before. The prices are absolutely nuts today. And so you either have to be, if you want to win in venture state, you have to be one of two things. I believe I'm a better picker than anyone else and can find diamonds in the rough. Or I believe that I am such attractive capital that I can win a beauty contest and still pay a very high price, but beat everyone else.
Yeah. Do it all at the same time. No, I think that was it. It's funny that like any investor who's claiming, complaining about high prices is just price every investment perfectly and never miss. You'll put up a great fund.
But by the way, entry price really matters. When you look at Wiz and Insight, something very timely, their entry price was very high. And so people are really shitting on it as an investment, saying like, oh, it only returned a third or a quarter of their fund. It's not, it's just that the entry price was so high. And
we'll talk about that. I'm curious, do you know any dynamics? Because I was wondering, imagine you're the partner who leads, a $200 million investment, turns it into $2.5 billion. And then you're kind of waiting around for your other partners saying like, I kind of did the heavy lifting here, but I need you guys there because they're not in carry yet. Is there a scenario where that partner doesn't really see much of a personal benefit from having, returning $2 billion?
I mean, let's just say I think they'll be getting a pretty big bonus at the end of the year, so I'm not too worried about them. But I mean, it is just testament to the fund size matters.
The scale.
Yeah.
The scale's massive. It's never been bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Continues on that.
All right, Harry. There's a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, we gotta have you
We'd
on
love to
again.
have
This
you
is
on again.
great.
Go enjoy dinner. Thanks for coming on late.
Yeah, we appreciate
It's,
you coming on late. We really appreciate
It's
it.
fantastic to have you,
Guys,
and we'll talk
honestly,
again soon.
you are fantastic company on the walk. Always let me know what I can do, and huge love, guys.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much.
Talk to you soon.
Enjoy your evening. Cheers.
Bye.